So as we know, October 1st is coming, and we have just a few months left. So as you can imagine how quickly your children's summer vacation goes, that's how quickly ICD-10 is going to be here. We certainly don't want you to have issues with claims denials or disruption of your revenue cycle or your workflow. So that's really what we provide you, is a simple solution that does it for you. And you can't avoid ICD-10. You have to do it. If you don't do it, you're just not going to get paid. ICD-9, obviously 13,000 codes, much easier to deal with, and with ICD-10 there's a lot more, and orthopedics is being hit the hardest with the biggest change in volume that we're going to have to know. It's also not only changing in the volume of codes, but the number of characters. So ICD-9 was much easier for our physicians to memorize the codes that they used because there were far fewer of them and they had far fewer digits. Now it's somewhere between 3 to 7 digits per code, and there's a lot more of them that they have to learn. They also have to know the details that they need to include. So the details that they need are different with each diagnosis, so that can become very confusing and pretty near impossible for any one person to be able to memorize the details that they need to know. In addition to that, you need to talk about anatomical sites, the etiology of the disease, the severity, and then you also have to classify whether it's the initial, subsequent, sequela, those types of things. So it's much more complicated with ICD-10, making it much more difficult and nearly impossible, if not impossible, for any person to memorize. So truly you need a solution that will automate it for you. On top of that, it's not just 1 to 4 anymore, it's A through L. So that's just adding a layer of complication to the coding that is necessary. It's, again, not like meaningful use. You have to do it. You have to do it starting October 1st. You will find paper encounters are not faster. I know a lot of our doctors, people don't want to change, and we get that. We know how easy it is to continue to do what you've done for 20 years, right? That nobody wants to have to change. And unfortunately, with ICD-10, you don't have a choice. You do have to change no matter what. Even if you decide to stay on paper, you still are going to have to change. And the change is going to be extremely difficult for people that don't have a solution that automates and choose to stay on paper. They are not going to be faster. You are going to have a huge increase in claims denials and mismatched documentation. And so paper really is not a solution anymore because you have to get paid. Regardless of what you do, it's your choice. You have there's obviously consequences to any choice that we make or any decision that we make. So with ICD-10, if you're choosing to stay on paper, you will, at a minimum, have to spend 2 minutes on a super bill to try to code it yourself if you're going to be using a Crosswalk or one of the other solutions out there. It takes 2 to 3 minutes per visit to code it, in addition to the time you spent writing your note. If you go that route, in most every case, you're going to have an increased. Not only are you going to increase the amount of time that you spend on the super bill in the first place, but you're also going to increase the amount of time you have going back and forth with your coding and billing department. So for a lot of our doctors that we talk to, they would like to say that my billers or my coders are going to do this, but the reality is your notes have to specify so much detail in order for your billers and coders to actually code it correctly. And if you don't know the information to give them, then they're going to be kicking it back to you, asking you for the details. And so you're going to be wasting a lot of time, not only up front trying to get to the code in the first place, but then in the back and the forth that you have with your billing department to give them the information that they need so that they can actually submit the claim. So there's a big problem with that. It is estimated that practices will lose about $50,000 to $100,000 for small practices and $200,000 to $800,000 for medium-sized practices in this change to ICD-10 due to the claims denials and the inaccurate coding. And again, so relying on your coders to do it for you is there's a lot of issues with that because you're going to be spending a lot of time in the back and forth, and that's time that you already don't have. So using paper or using your coding team to do it for you, it's just not going to work. So we actually created an orthopedic super bill for ICD-10, and this is what it looks like. It's just not going to be feasible to actually use this or anything like it. So what are other systems offering? They are offering general equivalence maps, which basically just like and crosswalks, and they're pretty much the same thing, where they're basically trying to map the ICD-9 code over to the ICD-10 code. The big problem with that is that it's not a one-to-one ratio, right? It's going from 13,000 to over 140,000. So you're going from one ICD-9 code to upwards of 100 ICD-10 codes. And oftentimes those crosswalks are not taking you to the accurate code. So even though you may spend 2 minutes crossing over to get to the code, it may not be accurate in the end, and your note may not support it. So there's big problems with using the crosswalks or the maps. The reason that other systems can't automate ICD-10 for you is because the systems out there are templates, meaning that each practice has built them themselves. So there's no structure to the data. There's nothing that an EMR company could use universally to map and code the ICD-9 to the ICD-10 for them, because it's all random templates that every individual practice has built. It's all sitting on individual servers, and so it's not structured data, making it impossible for EMRs to build the automation. And they require a lot of clicks and a lot of time to use those tools. So looking at a crosswalk, there's actually two parts to a crosswalk. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to use one, but you first have to look up the ICD-9 code you're looking for, and then it maps you over to a section in a book, so then you have to go to those pages to see where on the list is the diagnosis you're looking for, and then from there you have to go further to get to the extensions and the laterality, etc. So it's just very time consuming, not an easy process, and again, your notes might not support it. The unspecified code that you would initially be given is not enough. If you only use that code and you don't go to the next phase of the crosswalk to get the specificity, you're going to get denials. So that's a big, big time waster right there. It's having to jump around in all these different screens of a crosswalk to try to finally get to a code that you can actually submit, and then making sure that your node actually supports it. Buying a book on ICD-10, certainly a lot of people think that that's going to work and they're going to have their coding team or billers do it for them, which I've already discussed the problems with that. It's not accurate, and they are going to kick it back to the doctors to give them the information. All right, so what would work? What do doctors want? What do practices need? You need something to be extremely simple, where it's not costing you more time than what it did for ICD-9. You don't want anything to where you have to manually find a code. You need your codes to be clinically accurate based off of the documentation so that you can submit the claims, get them approved, and get paid. And doctors do not want to spend more than 10 seconds filling out a super bill. They certainly don't want to spend 2 to 3 minutes, and they're not going to spend 2 to 3 minutes. And so they're going to be pushing it onto the coding department, which then, as we know, it's not going to work. It's going to be pushed back. So why is EMA different? So our approach to ICD-10 is completely different. Everything about EMA is built out of structured data, which allows us to program behind the scenes. So we have programmed ICD-10 behind the scenes into the core of our product. So it's built in, not, as we say, bolted on as it is in other programs. It is a fully automated super bill. So it does not cost your doctors or clinical or coding staff any time to get to those codes. It's the same workflow now as it will be come October 1st. So it makes it extremely easy. We map each clinical disease with our team of orthopedic surgeons. So we have 3 orthopedic surgeons on staff who map every disease to the proper ICD-10 code. We have an anatomical atlas that we use for the anatomy and the location and the laterality to give you those extensions that you need. And our anatomical atlas, as you'll see in the demo, has over 100,000 anatomical sites. We audit these algorithms that our surgeons code with our coders. We audit these with a team, including Mary LeGrand. So for our customers, for our orthopedic surgeons and practices using our system, it's having Mary LeGrand on your team of auditors auditing the coding to make sure that that it is accurate and you have what you need. All right, so now I am going to jump into demoing EMA for you so that you can see what it's all about and how it works. All right. Would somebody mind IMing me and letting me know that you can actually see my my iPad? Great. Okay. So I'm going to jump into our application here. Now, for those of you that haven't seen Emma before or don't know, we are a web-based system, so you can use Emma both from a computer, and that can be any computer. You just need your web browser. But we also have native iPad applications, so you can use Emma on your iPad. And most of our customers spend about 85% of their time, or their time going from room to room, working on their clinical information. That's done on the iPad because it's very easy, obviously, to utilize an iPad. It doesn't interfere with your face-to-face communication with your patient. All right, so I'm just going to go into a chart here, and I'm going to go into Justin's visit for today, and I'm going to start documenting his visit. So I'm just going to, because we're looking at ICD-10, I'm just going to jump in and start documenting some diagnoses. So go into our exam room here, and we want to do some things. So obviously, osteoporosis or osteoarthritis is something that we see quite frequently, so I'm going to go ahead and find that diagnosis. So now I'm treating osteoarthritis. I might want to say that they have some abnormal exam findings, which are these. They have the osteoarthritis on maybe these locations. That's it. Now, in addition to that, I might want to, I can certainly document other diagnoses. We can go back, but let me just show you quickly how that happened or what just happened. So basically what I've done, this visit is dated today, okay, so we're still in ICD-9. So when I go to my note outputs, I've already generated my note and I have my ICD-9 code. Now, if I move this visit into the future, so just move it to October, and here are our ICD-10 codes. So it breaks it down by location, and it gives me all the diagnoses that I need. So very, very simple. Going back in there, if I wanted to treat a couple of other conditions, I can easily do that. So maybe we're going to treat, let's do maybe a rotator cuff tear. So we'll say it's a non-traumatic rotator cuff. Again, I can add my abnormal findings. I can associate a diagnosis with this. I can now say which shoulder is this affecting, and maybe I'm going to counsel them, right? So I'm just kind of going through, having that conversation with the patient. Everything's done. My note is done. My educational handout is done. And when I go to my super bill, that's all coded as well. So very simple, easy, nothing that the doctor has to learn. They simply learn how to do a note in Emma, which, as you can tell, is just simple touch-based, and their coding is done for them. All right, so I think I'm going to open it up to questions now if anybody wants to send over their questions. So while I'm waiting for people to type me or chat me some questions, I'll go through some of the things that you should be asking your vendor when you are evaluating ICD-10 in your current product, right? What are the things that you should be asking, even your current program or some that you're evaluating? The things that you want to know is, what are you providing me? What are you giving me? When will it be functional? When can I actually use it and test it and play with it and train my doctors on how to use it? Are they using mapping solutions that are bolted on, or does it do it for me? So how do they make sure you get the correct ICD-10 code? How long is it going to take your providers and staff to find that ICD-10 code? And make them show you how to do it. So if you're currently using a vendor and you're utilizing their EMR, or you're just going to use it for the ICD-10, make them demonstrate it to you, right? Because even though you're a current customer, they still need to continue to earn your business. So make them show you how it works, and make them show you various diagnoses, and time it. How long does it actually take to get there over what you're currently doing? How many added steps are there going to be to get to the correct code? And how do they help you prevent invalid or clinically inaccurate code? So these are all questions that you need to ask. But I think the most important thing is making sure you understand how much more time it's going to take your doctors, how accurate is it going to be, and how easy is it. But the accuracy is obviously huge, and the time that it's going to take them to do it. Let's see, some other questions that come up are, how long does it generally take to implement our solution? Usually takes about 3 months. From the time you sign the contract to the time your practice is 100% live, it's about 3 months. So obviously, seeing that we're 4 months away from ICD-10, you still have time to evaluate and get signed on. Certainly it can be done sooner, but the biggest thing is making sure that you have enough time to get into the training queue, to coordinate all your schedules in your office, and get ready. So the more time you have, the better. So now is really the time to do it. For hardware, that's another question people are asking. So what kind of hardware do you need for Emma? We are web-based, so really you just need your internet. You need your internet and Wi-Fi, and then what kind of device are you going to use? So many offices already have computers at the front desk and the nurse's station. Those are great. And then you may just add iPads to go from room to room. Which device you use is really a preference of the person using it. So if I'm a doctor and I prefer a laptop, then that's totally fine. But as I mentioned, most of our customers find that they really like the user experience of the iPad, so that's what most everybody spends about 85% of their time on. Let's see. Okay, so I have some questions here about usability of Emma and some of the functions and features of the product. So I'm going to jump back over to my iPad so I can show you a few more things about Emma in general to answer some of these questions. Okay, so one of the questions is, you know, for the doctors that like to dictate, right? We all know that doctors in our offices love to dictate, and the biggest fear I think about an electronic system is that it's going to look computer generated, and you know, they're not going to like the note, and they don't have as much control over it. So with Emma, we've really provided a lot of flexibility. So you have all the benefits of the structured data to give you a accurate note that's beautifully written, that looks like a dictated note. But we allow the flexibility for personalization. So throughout your treatment plans, you are able to dictate into it or add details wherever you like. So let's just go through a chief complaint, for instance. That's usually an area that the doctors like to add those personalized details because every patient's a little different. So what's nice about Emma is that it's going to personalize it as you go because no two patients are exactly the same, so it's not cloning anything. So I'm going to pretend that I'm your medical assistant right now, and I'm just going through a complaint with a patient. So I'm asking Justin as we're in the room, tell me about your issue, right? So I'm going to say the patient has knee pain, and then I'm just going to select which knee is affected. So I'm just going to touch on the appropriate knee, add some details, and they're telling me that they have maybe been playing basketball and it's catching and clicking with some electric and walking, as well as some popping and radiating pains. And maybe he has some instability. This is possibly a 6 out of 10 on the pain scale, and this happened 3 weeks ago, and there's no contralateral knee pain to note. He's not tried or had any surgeries or images, but he has tried a brace while he's playing basketball, and it's not really helping at all, and he's having difficulties with his recreational sports and also his activities of daily living. So now I'm the staff, I've queued up that paragraph for the doctor, which is customized perfectly to what this patient told me, but I have the flexibility of dictating into here. I am a doctor who likes to dictate, and I will add additional notes so that I have personalized my paragraph, and anyone reading it will see that I actually saw this, period. So you can dictate whatever you like, and that's done. And as you see down in the check marks there, the HPI components were already tracked, and they're being calculated into our E&M level. So that's done. And just like that, you can actually dictate into any portion of your notes. So that is a really nice feature that you have the functionality and the flexibility for your providers. Okay, let's see. Another question is in relation to the patient portal. So yes, we do have a patient portal with Emma. You just get that as a part of the system. So basically, you just allow your patients access to the portal. We are fully certified for meaningful use and all the things that you need for your compliance with the various government initiatives. So all of that is handled in Emma. So absolutely, we do have a patient portal. Okay, I'm just looking at some of the questions here. Do you need to have a server in your office? No, you don't have to have a server in your office. It's all web-based, so no servers, just internet access. Oh, and going back, let me go back really quick because there's another question about compliance items. So meaningful use reporting is handled within Emma. You can pull your meaningful use reports whether you're on the iPad or on a main computer. So it doesn't matter where you are, any computer or iPad, you have access to those reports. In addition to that, Emma will calculate your PQRS. So if a patient is Medicare, Emma knows that. If a patient, and what their age is, Emma understands that as well. If the patient is diabetic and osteoarthritic, all those things Emma understands because everything's built out of structured data. So basically, you just have your PQRS report, and Emma will answer the questions for you. So everything's done. It knows which questions the patient is eligible for, and it will answer them favorable or not favorable based on the medical history, the age, and Medicare of the patient, and what the doctor has diagnosed and treated. So that is done, and it literally saves about 2 to 3 weeks of manual data gathering per doctor in the practice, or per provider in the practice. So that's a huge time saver with the PQRS automation. Trying to think of what else to show you here. Another nice thing is not with us, we're all about saving you time, and we save you time through the automation. So obviously automating the coding for you is a big one, but giving you fast navigation is also key. So not only do we automate the note, the coding, the prescriptions, the orders, the educational handout, your image interpretations, all those things are automated based off of the note, but we also allow for fast navigation so that your providers and staff can find the information that they need very, very quickly. So if you're in the middle of documenting an exam, you can very easily find any information on this chart. You can find photos and attachments, you can track your outcomes, you can look at all past visit notes. So without having to leave, or even your procedure log, so without having to leave your current documentation, you can find all that information and you're still right here documenting your current visit. So that saves a ton of time. A couple of really nice other features that we have is the ability to draw on these images. So I mentioned that this anatomical atlas has about 100,000 plus anatomical locations. So if you look over here on the right, you can see all those diagrams here. So you can actually draw on those images, which are really, really nice to show more detail to the patient. So actually our customers really love the fact that they can pull this up, they can show the patient exactly where the problem is for their particular condition, and then they can sit there next to them and even pinpoint by drawing on them what they want to show them. And now that is a part of this visit note. So that's another really nice thing that our doctors really like and they use a lot, in addition to the ability to photograph the patient. So up next to this drawing button, you'll see the camera button, so you can easily just snap a quick picture of the patient. This could be an x-ray, this could be the actual patient, maybe it's intra-op, so you can actually photograph the patient and draw on the photo if you like. All right, it doesn't look like there's really any other questions coming in. So I will just hang out for a couple more minutes to see if anybody else has anything that they want to know about. And then, of course, we will be following up with you sometime this week just to follow up and make sure that we've addressed all your questions and offer a personalized demonstration for you and your group. So we obviously are looking forward to working with you further and seeing how we can help. Okay, well, it doesn't appear that anybody has any other questions this evening. So again, I want to thank you for joining us, and we just appreciate the time you're spending with us this evening, and we know, family time is important. So thank you again, and we look forward to speaking with you further and helping you as you go through the process of evaluating Emma further. So thanks again. Have a great night, everybody.